with the last meeting because we had an executive session that took me forever to be able to get it edited out. So
Oh, okay.
last meeting actually just went up yesterday.
Okay.
So, but we shouldn't have that same thing this time because I'll shut record off when we go into executive.
Okay, perfect. Chairman's additions, deletions. I don't have any, I don't think. Check. Where did we put reorganization of the board? Either that or I have an old agenda.
It's 4.10. 4.10.
Okay. I do have an old one then, sorry.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask, Wayne, is liaison reports. Did that just get overlooked?
I just got it today, so we can talk about it. I haven't looked at.
If not, I will. It's not on the agenda, but I can cover it under 5.2.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'll work. Updates.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right, 1-4 public comment period. Does anybody have anything? Crickets. Okay, I'll take that as a no. Move on to the next. So 2.1, is John Barrett on, Jim?
John is there, yes.
Hello, John.
See if his mic is on yet.
So this is for discussion of the mainstream agreement and town meeting warrant article.
John, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, John.
Okay. Hi, Wayne. And hi, Jim. Is Kevin there?
I don't see a Kevin yet.
Oh, hi, Veronica.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
He may have. I tried the link that you sent me, Jim, and it said a host. It was already in a meeting, and so I went onto the website for the town website, and I clicked it on the agenda, and then I was able to link up.
Oh, do you need to wait for Kevin, John, before you have your discussion? Because
Well, I mean, I think I can lay it out, basically what he's looking for, Jim, and explain it to the selectmen. Basically, as you may know, Kevin and Denise Miller bought Pete's Barbershop, and that's actually at 370 Main Street. It's in the agenda. It says 365, but it's 370 Main Street. And Kevin and Denise bought Don Keefe's old house previously at 226 Main Street, and they've fixed it up. They're using it right now for an office. However, he bought Pete's. He paid a pretty good price for it, considering its condition. It's in really rough shape. He wants to preserve it, maintain the building, maintain the outward appearance. He would have to do a lot of repairs to it, though, to make it really functional. I mean, it's got the original glass windows, which personally I would keep, but people that want to be warm don't like them. And the major renovation is needed as far as the basement. The foundational walls are in very bad shape, and the back end of the building needs to be rebuilt because of, I think, what dampness caused by the trees that are in that corner. So those trees would have to come down. But he's prepared to make a substantial investment in this building, put a new foundation in, make it a usable building, and maintain its outward appearance at least. I think he's toyed with the idea of possibly another barbershop upstairs and an office downstairs, but he's open on that. It may be just general office space, but to make it worthwhile to do that, he needs to have some sort of access to the building from the back. And I'm not sure if Jim was able to share with you the sketch, basically, that Kevin prepared to show where his driveway and parking lot would be. It's a very narrow lot, as you folks probably know. I think its widest point is maybe about 30 feet wide, and there you can see it now. And so the driveway would essentially come from the town's parking lot over and into, hugging the side of the town line with the stone wall that's there, and then go up and have parking at the rear of the building. He's not planning to expand the building at all. He also has been sensitive to the neighbors' concerns because, as you know, Dave and Kristen Picaro have Cliff's restaurant. And over the years, Pete has allowed them to sort of expand their backyard into the into Pete's area. And I think Kevin's not too worried about that, except the fact that he does need to get access to that, the back of the building. And he will need access in order to do the renovations. He'll have to have some heavy equipment come in there to do the renovations to the building because it's such a narrow spot. I think it's at most 10 feet between his building and Cliff's. A little bit more room on the town hall side. But what he ultimately is looking for, particularly from the board, is your thoughts on the town granting an easement that would go through the town's parking lot so that he would be able to access his driveway in the back there. Other than that, he really doesn't have any, access. Pete, I think, always used to just park out back there. His customers, he never had too many people, although I remember a day when you'd have to wait for a haircut, but he never had too many people there. They would just park on Main Street. And as far as the public, it probably won't change that much as far as the, people coming into the building. But he would like to put in the 4 parking spaces in the back for people that work there. So I think that's about the size of it. I mean, I know that we would have to go to town meeting for the grant of an easement, and Kevin would need to do the plans that would show it. I don't think it would change anything particularly, but that's what he's looking for. I guess the board's thoughts and hopefully your support for this idea.
I have no issue with it. Seeing as to go to town meeting, I won't hold it up. Personally, I think that we need to. I mean, the man's he purchased a building. He's got to get access to it. So, if that's the only way, I think we should entertain looking at it. Veronica, I don't know if you have thoughts.
My thoughts would be, I think that, John, have you talked to the planning board about it? Or the land use department?
Not yet. I think that they probably will probably need to do site plan review, but there's no point in doing that unless the town itself is willing to grant the easement.
Well, my next question would be, you can't see everything in this. I would like to see the parking lot at the back of Town Hall.
Yeah.
Are we giving up parking spaces in Town Hall in order for this access to happen? I guess I would want to see more of this. And to me, I understand that for an easement to get in the back there, that, yeah, you'd have to go to town meeting. But I would definitely want, having been a former planning board member, I would definitely want the planning board looking at this and talking about it as well.
Right.
Before I would say, I mean, I guess I understand that there's work that needs to be done in the back and you need access to get to that. Are there other ways in? And then the next thing is, Pete did run a business and he did have parking. What was the parking that was there before? And why would it be inadequate now? And that's a planning board issue.
Well, he did not have any parking in the back there before, Veronica. I mean, the backyard is grown over and basically the neighbors are using it as part of their backyard. Pete never needed it.
Okay.
Pete used to park in the town's parking lot and his customers would park on Main Street. Certainly
So
this plan, I'm sorry?
Do we lose parking spaces?
Yeah, I was
in the
trying to get that. Obviously, this plan doesn't show the town's parking lot. This was just a plan that was prepared for when he purchased the property, and just shows where his driveway would be. it would come out into the town's parking lot, and it probably would eliminate one parking space because of the angle of where it would come out. There's one spot on the corner there, but he's willing to put another spot in at the back of his lot. I don't know, you can't see my finger, I'm forgetting. If you look at the bottom of the lot, I'm pointing to it, you can't see that. At the bottom, I think he could get another pocket. Yeah, there you go, Jim. You got the little magic thing there. If it was pointed for a little bit further down to the left-hand corner.
Yeah, that's about my Bob Ross impersonation right there.
Okay, so it'd be in the left-hand corner, Ronnie, that you would be able to put another parking spot in there so that his right-of-way would come out. And eyeballing it the other day, it looked to me as though, of course, it'd have to be plans done, but it looked to me as though it would only eliminate one space in the town's parking area.
I guess for me, I would want to see a plan that included the town's parking area in it, and I would want to have this at least run. I don't know that it. I don't even know. I've never walked back there to see what's behind Pete's Barbershop. I've never really looked to see what it looks like and what it is. So I would want to do that as well before I weighed in on what I thought. I guess my other question is, when is there a town meeting, and can something like this go on a special town meeting? Like, what's the time frame on this? Seems to me we have some time to consider, since we haven't even talked about a town meeting. So, Wayne, do you have thoughts on that?
Well, we haven't really discussed it. Hasn't come up yet because, I mean, we're waiting for the state
Right.
budget. That's the last, the next thing that has to happen. So I think here it's just, I think the support would be we be willing to put a warrant article on for the town meeting? And I don't see anything that would stop it from going down that direction, because he's got to get permits. He's got to go through the planning board anyway. So there's a lot that has to happen. So correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think you're just looking for our support that if this were to come up on, if they were to file for a warrant article to be put on the next town meeting, that we would allow that to happen. That if that's the case, then I have no problem.
Yeah, I think, Wayne, that's basically what we're looking for. And also, I mean, ideally, and I can understand Veronica's concerns and knowing what's going to happen in the town parking lot. But I guess what Kevin is hopefully looking for is, I guess, a conceptual approval, or not approval is too strong a word, but support, I guess, or just the get a sense from the selectmen whether they would put it on the warrant and support it if all the other issues could be resolved. I mean, I'd venture to say, what if the town were to lose one parking space? I have to say, Kevin probably does not want to spend, another $10,000 in a plan that shows the town's parking lot. If the selectmen, and I don't think he was saying this, would say, well, no, we're not interested. I think that the seed for this has got to come from the Board of Selectmen, and hopefully, I understand the town meeting has to approve it, but I think he's looking for some support to go forward with this idea that at least conceptually, the selectmen would be okay with it, as long as, certain concerns were addressed. And you're right, there's not a big rush. I know that we probably aren't looking at a town meeting for some time. So if there are some things that he can do preliminarily, Veronica, to address the concerns about the parking lot, we can try to do that. But this is just a preliminary shout out to let you know what he's looking to do. And essentially, if he can't do this, he's not going to be able to put the money into the building that he had hoped to put into it. I mean, it simply wouldn't be feasible. I mean, if he can't have access and some parking, he just won't be able to do it.
Yeah, and I have no reason to object to allowing somebody to do work on their property. That's, but to Veronica's point, yes, it has to be done right, but I don't see anything that should red flags that we shouldn't be able to move forward with allowing to start the process.
I would not be willing to entertain a vote on this tonight. I would want to go and look at it and see, to consider allowing an easement through town property, what sort of ramifications might there be? I know you can't figure out everything in the future for other town buildings. Does this open it up if we give this easement once in town meeting? Are we doing it for everybody in the future? So it's those sorts of considerations, and I guess I would want to think about it more than just say, oh, sure, let's support this. It's not that I don't support it. I don't know if I support it or not. So I want to take a walk out there and look at this. I wouldn't want him to go and make new plans, but even a little sketch down there. Where's the town? Okay, I see the town hall. So where's the back parking lot? I thought there was like a walkway that came out. And where does that attach in? And what does this do to the walkway that comes from over by the ice cream factory? Where is this? I can't off the top of my head say, oh, I've got this, because I don't.
Yeah.
Well, John, what I would suggest is getting with the planning board and seeing what they need to move forward for that, because it's really going to come from them first. But it's all it is. It's up to us to put it on a warrant article onto the town meeting. And I don't think we have enough information for that yet, and we don't have
no.
That even scheduled.
Again, this was very preliminarily. I mean, and it seems to me, I think I could report to Kevin that the board is not opposed to it, but needs more information.
Come back in.
More thought. I at least need more thought for this. I just saw this drawing at 5 o'clock and I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
So I appreciate you coming and explaining it. But I do want to think about it a little bit before I say yes or no or anything. So.
Yeah. Okay. No, fair enough.
I'm not opposed. This is not, oh no, take that away.
No, we're not.
Yeah. Well,
there's no need for
that's all we were looking for, Veronica. Yeah. It's just like,
it's
and we wanted to let you know about it and find out what, I guess, some direction. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that we'll check in with the planning board and we'll try to get a better plan to show, at least conceptually, without doing a lot of engineering, at least conceptually orient you to the whole situation.
Perfect.
Where it is. I mean, if you want to walk out there sometime, or if Kevin does, I'd be willing to do that just to see.
Anytime.
That's really.
Yeah, anytime that you have available, let me know, and either I or Kevin can,
I'll do that.
walk you over there.
Okay. All right. Thanks, John.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Veronica. Thanks, Jen.
Okay.
Hi, John.
All right. On to 2.2. Anna Noyes, treasurer for cash operation discussion. Is Anna on?
She actually was on briefly. She's been out not feeling well. And when I did post the meeting finally last night, I listened through and we had left it that I was going to be speaking with Lori and Anna at the department head meeting, which is going to be next Tuesday, and then coming back with the plan from there. So we just pass over this for tonight and then we'll have that commentary for it at your next meeting.
Okay, perfect.
I have one thing that I'd like to, I mean, after last time, it was the next department meeting from you, Jim, but it was all, I'm curious to know this cash overseen by elected boards, that sort of thing. I'd like more information on that as well. Why would that make a difference as far as cash collection then? So I want to consider that.
The only point that I was making when I raised that issue at the last meeting, Veronica, was if the select board puts a policy in place that says cash operations will no longer exist but for the treasurer collector's office, the elected board of health that oversees the recycling center could say, thanks, but no thanks. We have care, custody, and control of this property and this function, and we're going to continue to use cash. We're going to just implement a stricter standard or a policy for receipts or something to that effect. I just wanted you to know that you're your authority is somewhat limited when you bump up against other elected boards. That's all.
Well, that's interesting. I guess if we have a cash policy in town, they would still have access to their funds. It would just be a cash policy. I'd want more information on that before I said, oh yeah, that's the case. So.
Well, I guess I'm not certain what more information there is that you'd be looking for. The Board of Health is a great example.
I guess I'm looking for the policy that says elected boards are not required to follow policies of the selectmen or the town. I guess that's what I'm looking for. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
If there was a bylaw, for instance, that was passed at a town meeting, that would be a broad enough application that it would cover all departments, because that's a town bylaw. Doing
Then
it
maybe
as,
we should be exploring something like that in conjunction with this, depending on what happens when we see where cash operations are in town and how they're managed and what ideas there are to bring them into a central location.
sure, and I wasn't trying to forecast that someone was going to disagree with you. I just wanted it to be clear before you went too far down the road that your authority to dictate via selectmen policy to another elected board isn't there. That's all.
Okay, but a bylaw would be. So if we
Indeed.
decide, and we're not looking at this to happen tomorrow.
Right.
So if we would decide that the direction we want to go is the direction we want the town to go in, then it's good to know that there could be a bylaw drafted to put that into place. All right, thanks. That's all I wanted to say on that.
Right, on to 3.1, we got a bunch of appointments. So first is to appoint Darlene Sedano to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 5-year term. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we appoint Darlene Sedano to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 5-year term effective October 20th, 2020 to June 30th, 2025.
And I will second that. Any discussion on that? Nope. All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. 3.2, appoint Craig Stevens as an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Can I get a motion on that?
I move that we appoint Craig Stevens as an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 1-year term effective October 20th, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
And I'll second that as well. Any discussion there?
Not for me.
All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. 3.3, appoint Dave Funioli as an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals 2.
I move that we appoint Dave Funioli as an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 1-year term effective October 20th, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
And I'll second that as well. All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. Great. 3.4, appointments to the Town Properties Committee. Julie Byers as an at-large member. Can I get a motion there, or just says appointment, Jim? Or
yes.
Okay.
I move that we appoint Julie Byers as an at-large member for the Town Properties Committee. I don't know if we have to say as an at-large, do we?
No.
So as a member of the Town Properties Committee.
Okay, perfect. And I'll second that. All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. 3.5, appoint Susan Shufford as an associate registrar effective on the dates listed. Can I get a motion there, please?
I move that we appoint Susan Shuford as an associate registrar effective October 20th, 2020 to March 31st, 2021.
And I'll second that as well. All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. Okay. Meeting business. 4.1, review, approve, sign, license to authorize Townsend Lions Club to sell Christmas trees. Can I get a motion there?
I move that we approve and sign a license to authorize the Townsend Lions Club to sell Christmas trees at the rear of the Townsend Common from November 27th, 2020 to December 24th, 2020.
I'll second that too. So this is the annual Lions Club thing, I assume. So
I have a question on this. Do we have to, due to COVID, do we have to have any sort of guidelines in place for this sale? I mean, it's outdoors, but do we?
I don't think you do. I mean, if you wanted to add to the motion that your recommendation is that they follow protocols per the CDC, I mean, I think that'd be fine. I don't know that, I don't know that you can compel them to, but I don't think there'd be any issue with at least the recommendation.
I would say then the motion and advise that they follow protocols as per the CDC.
and I'll second the amended motion. Yeah, from as I understand it, the state only requires that drugstores, like the essential people or essential stores, require face masks and everything like that. Everybody else is kind of up to them. But I haven't been to a store in Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire that doesn't. Well, New Hampshire is different, but
Okay.
I haven't seen a sign that doesn't. So I would think that they would follow the same thing. So
Okay.
all those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. 4.2, approve sign a road opening permit for a new gas service at 136 Main Street. Can I get a motion there?
I move that we sign a road opening permit for, this means that they're actually opening the tarmac, or whatever you want to call it, the road itself, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, as opposed to allowing traffic down it. Just wanted to clarify. All right, I move that we approve and sign a road opening permit for a new gas station for a new gas service at 136 Main Street.
And I'll second that. All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. I skipped over your 4.1.0, the reorg.
Well, that comes down at the end because it's not mathematical, Wayne. It's the numbers that come after the point are the number of items. So although 0.1 and 0.10 are the same thing, the 0.10 would come after or whatever.
Oh, I see.
Bottom.
That was my fault.
No, it's not. It's a good question, actually.
I got to turn the lights up in here. I can't see very well. Okay, sorry. 4.3, approve, sign a road opening permit for Emery Road for a test station. Can I get a motion there?
I move that we approve and sign a road opening permit to install a test station at Emery Road and South Row Road.
And I'll second that.
Okay, can I ask a question? What is a test station? I'm just sensitive to this given the pipeline stuff.
Sure.
So what is a test station?
If you look at the actual permit on the second page, it's test station and anode bed.
Yep, I
And
see that.
if you do what I did and Google anode bed and test station, it comes up with a series of electrodes installed in an
I know what an anode is.
environment to provide cathode protection against corrosion. So this is to be installed underground for that purpose. So the bed is the area upon which the anodes are placed.
And how does one perform the test? Is there a like a trap door that you open? I mean, what causes it to be a test?
But if I'll use my rudimentary knowledge of this, basically it's a sensor that they can read from above that is detecting rust in the pipe.
Okay.
Because that's all an anode cathode would be, is to detect electrical current or a change in electrical current that would indicate rust.
So the question was, how do they get?
I imagine they have these all over the place and they just hook up a sensor to it.
Okay.
That's my chemistry lesson for the day.
Electrical engineering.
Oh,
all right,
I'm not an engineer.
So what, I made the motion.
I seconded it. All those in favor?
Yes.
Wayne
Veronica,
Miller, yes.
yes.
And Wayne Miller, yes. 4-4, discussion reopening open meetings to the public. I know there's been a lot of question about this of late. My feeling is I am in no hurry to do that, particularly with the numbers climbing as they are and moving into the winter months. So I am of the opinion to maintain these virtual meetings for the time being until we can do it safely. Veronica, I don't know what your feeling is on that.
My feeling is that we're putting daycare in the town hall.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to be having people in the town hall, then I don't see a need to keep people. I see a need to keep the numbers down, but the meetings are generally held at night. The kids are there during the day. I think if the board wanted to have an in-person meeting, that I would assume it would be perfectly fine if everybody were masked and we stayed in the count number that whatever it is, phase 3, step 2 allows.
My only concern with that is there's got to be a cleaning protocol in place post meeting before, because we're going to have this until 8 o'clock at night, say for instance, and Emmy and her team's going to be there the next morning at 7. So do we have the resources and ability to clean after our meeting and do that? So I guess I'd have to turn it over to Jim to see, because this wasn't part of our reopening plan. So we need to explore what that's going to cost, what that's going to look like, and what the resources are going to be required for that.
Well, before that, what is our reopening plan?
The last plan voted is the plan that exists online for reopening, and it's remote meetings until further notice to be considered by the board. I will note that the 11 communities surrounding us, as far south as Lancaster, east as Groton, and west as Ashburnham, none are holding live meetings. Everybody is still in virtual. That's just the regional communities, and you can go further than that, and I did. And I've not found communities that are holding live meetings. The distinction I draw between what's happening in the rec program and what would be happening in a public meeting with the select board is the rec program, you're dealing with staff that are trained to clean the participants. I don't know that you or I would be the ones standing at the door cleaning the public as they come in to assure that everything is copacetic. But
what do you mean by cleaning the participants?
Well, you seem to indicate, if I understood your logic, that if we're putting kids in the building, then why can't we put adults in the building for a public meeting? And I just draw the distinction that the kids are being cleaned. They are being wiped down. They are being followed. They are being sanitized all throughout the day, multiple times a day, pursuant to Emmy's protocol. The same doesn't hold true for an open public meeting where anyone from the public can come in. You can't control whether that person is clean or not. So that's, I think, a significant distinction between an open public meeting, people in the building, and the kids in that rec program.
So, and we have to have contact tracing in place. There's a lot of work that would need to be done for that. So I guess, Jim, I would ask you to explore what that would look. I mean, we're going to have to do this at some point, right? So explore what all that would entail to add to the plan when and if we choose to in the future. But as of right now, I have no desire issue to bring people back into the building like that.
Veronica, is it your sense that people don't like this, that they would prefer to have
Um,
face-to-face?
No, it's just that at some point we need to do this. And I guess my thought is if we are having essentially a daycare in the building, then what would preclude us from having open meetings? It doesn't mean necessarily that, oh, it must happen tomorrow. It's just that we should be thinking about how and when we're going to do it, I feel. You know, as things open up more, you have to be ready to fall back too in case things don't progress positively.
Yeah. Well, that's the
So-
other thing. Does that God knows how long the daycare could be open, because if they fall outside the positive case, they're going to get shut down, like a lot of the schools that you're seeing in the region. So I think the right thing to do is just to start looking at a plan to do that, and roll back as you.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so Jim, if you could help out with
I
that.
do have a question. Did we ever hire we were looking for 2 people to clean in town hall? Were they ever hired?
We've got one applicant that has just come forward. She currently spends time at the senior center doing some of the very same work as a volunteer. So that's one that I know Bo will be speaking with, Bo, the facilities manager. And then Paul, our existing custodian, has picked up a couple of additional hours just because of the added work that he's needed to do. So we have the COVID funds approved in hand for that to cover those hours. And then we do have a gentleman, Mr. Shine, which I think is funny that he's coming in and shining things with all the disinfectant stuff, but he's been doing all of the touchable surfaces, the high touch surfaces in the town hall, currently senior center, library, and police station, public areas in the police station. So we still have funds and hours available, but there haven't been a lot of people jumping up and down to take the positions.
Okay. All right. So as far as that goes, we continue with Zoom. And so we'll talk about TCAM with that. But I do have one other question that kind of falls with the things that were put into place as COVID came into our community. When town hall was closed back in March, April timeframe, the Board of Selectmen, and I found this going through minutes for other things, moved to authorize the town administrator to sign documents on behalf of the town with the approval of the chair until further notice. Does that need to be rescinded at this point? Do we have department heads and boards coming into town hall?
Yes, I don't think it was about department heads as much as it was about board members themselves and convening meetings. So the impetus behind it at that point in time, there was a specific series of legal documents that were going to require votes of the board and then signatures. And instead of convening meetings, because at the time you were doing them telephonically,
Right.
and some of them board members were sitting at the table socially distanced with a conference telephone in the middle of the table. Instead of having to convene those for the purpose of signing, just for the purpose of signing a document, that vote was put in place. But you're regularly now in the town hall as members. We're regularly meeting where votes can take place. So I don't think there's any need to continue that at all.
Okay.
Okay, that dovetails to the next one, I guess, is the just Cable Community Access Corp and recording, videoing, hosting board meetings and scheduling procedures. So do you have an update on that, Jim? Or
I do. The folks at TCAM have purchased a subscription to Zoom, and they purchased the business subscription that has up to 500 participants and 10 dial-ins, and allows for webinars, which is one of the concerns that Veronica mentioned at the last meeting, that she was interested in making certain that whatever they did, they had the ability to do the webinar function. So that's in place. They're doing training on it this week. And just before the meeting tonight, I spoke with both Hartley, the operator, and Jerry, a member of the board, and they're targeting the beginning of November as the start point for them to take over and do these meetings. So your next meeting, November 3rd, 4th, whatever it is, escapes me right now. That'd be the time that TCAM would be the ones showing up as the host, controlling the meeting, moderating the meeting, being the administrator, watching the waiting room and the like. So we'll transition me limping along and trying to do it over to them doing it very nicely for your next meeting.
Great.
Is it possible to do it sooner? Only because I know that I heard from the ZBA that they are not holding meetings right now until TCAM is able to do this. I think that might be true also for the planning board. I'm not certain on that. And I don't think that our public meetings should be put on hold because of the fact that we don't have TCAM doing Zoom. And I'm sensitive to what happened with the planning board. So I would like to see them do that sooner than November 1st, if at all possible. I know that Hartley's able to do Zoom. He does it with the senior center. So why would he not be able to start doing meetings tomorrow with the other boards, I guess is my question.
And that's a fair question. I can only tell you what that private nonprofit has communicated to me, which is what I've shared with you. If between now and November 1st, so here we are, the 20th, so if over the next 10 days, there need to be meetings, we do still have live Zoom accounts of our own. So if TCAM has taken the position that they're not going to start until they're certain that they can do it correctly, and they've given the November 1st date, we can still utilize, this one that I'm using now is one that's on my credit card. I know Beth had one. I don't know if she still does or if she canceled it, but this one can be used in the interim during this next 10 days if somebody really needs to have a meeting.
I think I would prefer to see something in place.
It's being put in place, Veronica. That's the point I'm making is he advised that they just got their Zoom account and they're doing training this week. So this week is, we're at the 20th now. So that'll put us at the 27th a week from now. And 3 days after that is the 1st, which is when they're saying that they'd be able to be up and running.
Okay, I know that the planning board has a DLTA grant. There's a time frame and they need to have a public meeting. If I am pretty sure they're hesitant to use the Zoom account that they had previously used. And I don't know enough to know whether there were any changes to that account after the incident. And I think it would be good to, I guess my question is, can there be an account put in place then that the town owns, and can we borrow Hartley to run the meetings if he doesn't want to use the account that is the TCAM account?
I don't, Veronica, I don't think it's an issue with whose account it is. They have made a management decision that their employees are going to be training on the platform this week and will be ready the first week of November. It's
okay,
not.
So what do people do who want to have public meetings between now and then?
In the next 10 days, if there's a need for a public meeting, what I've just indicated is this platform that we're using right now, although it is on my credit card because we didn't have a town card at the time, is going to be open for the next couple of weeks before I cancel it. So if somebody absolutely has to before TCAM is ready to take it up, they can use this. I would go a step further and say that I'd be happy to admin it. So if it's Beth, she doesn't have to go through the stress of what she went through at the last meeting, and she can actually just participate in the meeting. So if somebody's on, I see we have Bill on from the ZBA. I don't know that I see anybody from the planning board on. But if they have an interest in doing that,
Laurie's on, Laura Schifrin's on. She's from the planning board.
I don't see her.
I do.
I see her. Um, Beth was able to change the security for her Zoom account for our last zoning board meeting, and we had no problem. So
I received an email saying that the ZBA would not be holding meetings, Bill, until TCAM took over.
well, that's we understood that the Board of Selectmen had said words to that effect. But I decided to run the last meeting because we had all our ducks in a row and our advertising and stuff like that. I can't afford, the town can't afford to give up all that.
Well,
For some procedural issue.
The Board of Selectmen's never prevented anybody from holding public meetings. So that's, I don't know where you heard that.
So I guess I was misinformed, but anyway, I decided to go ahead anyway. So, but we didn't have a problem. We got the meeting done. And I'm just anxious for you folks to get this thing going, because we have a appeal of the building this inspector, which typically we only have 100 days. Now I know all the time limits are shot because of COVID, but I still would like to make the time limits just, out of habit. So, I mean, it's better for our customers if we make the time limits. That's all I'm saying.
So I guess the bottom line is, if there's a board out there that needs to have a meeting before the 1st, reach out to Jim and schedule and coordinate it with him using his current account, and we'll move on from there. If they can go faster, or Hartley's trained in 2 days instead of 5, then great, fantastic. Cool. They can reach out and I'll make an announcement for that.
And Mr. Chairman, to Bill's point, I think the confusion comes in that Beth and I spoke, and Beth admins for the ZBA as well as the planning board. Beth and I spoke after your last meeting, and she had been coming off of their then most recent meeting that went very badly, and was canceling her account and wanted to know what's coming. And I said, well, we just had a select board meeting last night, and the discussion was that we're going to get TCAM and have everything transitioned to them. So let's find out when that's going to be. So that may have then spun into everything's on hold until TCAM. So if that was the impression left, let's correct that now, that we do still have an opportunity through this platform, this account, to hold something if it needs to be held within the next 10 days.
Yeah, so that's the bottom line.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay. All right, on to 4-6 South Row Road parcel. Say that 5 times fast.
This is the one where at the last meeting, Veronica, you had asked if the Conservation Commission had taken it up yet, and they've not had a meeting since the email was forwarded off or was at least received, is what I was told at the end of the day after last meeting when I reached out to Dave. So their next meeting that he's trying to schedule now, this will be on their agenda for consideration. And this, for people that are following along, this is a parcel of land, 42 acres landlocked off of South Row Road that the owners are looking to donate to the town if the town has an interest in it. The planning board has expressed some interest in it. The conservation is an important body to consider here, because absent conservation's interest in it, we would be looking at a town meeting vote. If conservation is interested, they have the ability to either take fee or a CR, a conservation restriction, without a town meeting vote. So we should have that information after their next meeting.
Were you able to talk to the attorney to see, is this a gift or are they looking for sale? Your email said it was a gift.
It is a gift. Yep, that was the original communication with the attorney. They'd be looking at gifting it for the value of the assessed value of the parcel as a tax write-off for them. So they'd be donating it to the town, and they'd be able to write off that value.
Okay.
All right. 4-7 discussion, DCR notice of potential land purchase.
What came up at the last meeting, Veronica brought it up, and there was some language in the second part of what Veronica read into the record regarding the town's willingness to waive the 120-day window because they had an expedited closing schedule. That sent red flags up about whether or not this was the 120 days that's contemplated in the statute when someone is looking to sell land that they have had in Chapter 61 protection for either agriculture or forestry. People that have a parcel of land that they use for agriculture or forest products are able to register it under this chapter of the law and receive a significant discount on the real estate tax. So we wanted to make certain that that wasn't the case with this parcel before the town went too far down the road, because they'd be required to send the assessors, the select board, and the planning board registered mail showing that they had a bona fide offer, and then the town gets the ability to match the bona fide offer or waives its right of first refusal. That's a lot of words to say. We thought that could have been an issue, but the assessors have determined that this isn't a parcel that was in chapter, therefore it's not an issue. So what you did is what the DCR needed you to do. So now we can send that out in writing to them that you took a vote at your last meeting to publicly state that DCR had an interest in it, which is the first part. And second to that, that the town doesn't object to 120-day window being narrowed because they have an expedited closing schedule.
All right, so I think just for the record, it says that the board does not need to take any formal action on its part, but they need to make the announcement. This is just for the record. It is map block lot 2920. It's on Brookline Road, and it lies between two Townsend State Forest parcels that are on, I guess it would be the east side going north on 13. It's to the right, not to the left. All right, and so I'm just going to then read this and use it with today's date. So I, Veronica Kell, clerk of the Select Board of the Town of Townsend, Massachusetts, do hereby certify that on October 20th, 2020, it was announced at a public meeting of the Board of Selectmen that the Department of Conservation and Recreation may acquire an interest in a parcel of land located in Townsend, as shown on the attached locus map, which you can't see, but it's 2920, marked for conservation and/or recreation purposes. So their intent would be to continue the property as open space and to incorporate it into the Townsend State Forest. So that's what this is. And then the second piece would, I think, require a vote. That we ask that you agree. This is reading from the email, Wayne, that I sent to you after the meeting last time, and to Jim, I believe. We therefore ask that you agree to waive the 120-day notice period and indicate your waiver by cutting and pasting the statement in the box below, filled out appropriately in a reply email to Marcus Pittore, who is the Assistant General Counsel for DCR. So Wayne, this one is for you, actually.
Okay.
Do you have that document?
I don't have it in front of me. I'd have to
Okay,
switch computers.
can I read it as a motion then and put your name in, and then we can vote whether,
Vote to sign out of session.
yeah, does that work?
Jim, is that?
Being sent as an email though, so you'd just be reading it and authorizing me to do that cut and paste and email it off to the gentleman listed.
Okay, then let me read it, and I'll read it with Wayne's name.
Gotcha.
And we will authorize it to send. And my understanding from land use requirements for DCR is, even if we waive the 120 days, they still have to wait 60 days. You know, if we didn't waive the 120 days, they'd have to wait 120. But if we waive this, there's still a 60-day window. where they can discover whether there's something that would prevent them from purchasing or whatever. So anyway, okay. The 120-day waiver statement. Pursuant 301 CMR 51.08 1B, I, Wayne Miller, Chairman, Town of Townsend Board of Selectmen, on behalf of the board, hereby agree to waive the 120-day notice period as required by said section as to a parcel of land of approximately 18 9/10 acres in the town of Townsend, shown on Exhibit A attached hereto, and it's attached to the email, in which the Department of Conservation and Recreation is considering acquiring an interest. And that is it. That's the statement.
So what, do we have to have a vote to authorize Jim to forward that on?
You just second what she just said and
I'll
vote, and we're good to go.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes?
Wayne Miller, yes.
Excellent. And I have that email, Veronica.
You have it?
Yep.
Okay, so you can just, the top
Yep.
piece, the declaration for the clerk, and then for Wayne. All right, and ship it back to the guy?
And CC you guys. Yep.
Yes, terrific, thank you.
Okay. Where are we? 4.8, the state budget priority request. I assume, Jim, this is from Senator Tran.
Yes, Senator Tran and from Representative Harrington.
Okay.
The state budget is back in play. The governor released his revised fiscal 21 budget to the House and the Senate last week. And back when we had our annual town meeting, we set the budget and we made clear to folks that were considering the budget that they understood we were using last year's unrestricted general government aid, our local aid from the state, and not what the governor had put forward back in January, which was a couple $100,000 more. It's good that we did that. It's good we took that conservative approach, because the budget he rolled out last week does fall back to those fiscal 20 numbers. So we are right where we needed to be. Now the House and the Senate have their crack at it. So we don't know what's going to come out the other end of that process, but we've got that first step in and we are where we need to be in alignment with the governor's numbers. Now that the budget is back alive in the House and the Senate, we have what has become a usual and customary outreach from our Senator, Dean Tran, and our Representative, Sheila Harrington, regarding priorities that we may have for projects in town, for them to attempt to get either funded as direct budget lines or funded through any bond package that might be before the House and the Senate. So I've had the opportunity to meet with members of the board, and the list comes up as most heavily sidewalks, and a couple different portions. Sidewalks from the center of town to Spalding School, carrying on beyond that as perhaps a second phase, going from Spalding all the way down to West Townsend, presumably at the intersection at Canal, but perhaps even further. That'd be something I would look to get some feedback from you on, Veronica. And then the other is from Emery Road to the center of town. So Jim Smith has done a little bit of poking around to try to get a back of the envelope idea on cost per mile of 4-inch thick reinforced concrete sidewalks 5 feet wide, and rough numbers about $200,000 per mile. And looking at those legs that I just described, from Emery to the center is roughly 1.4 miles. So you'd be looking at about 280,000. And from the town hall to Spalding, about 0.33 miles. So about $70,000. And then the next extended section from Spalding down to Canal would be an additional 330,000. Those are obviously very rough numbers, but they would give us some toehold to put a request in if it's the pleasure of the board to include that in the list. Additionally, consideration of asking for the shared spaces grant that we created, put forward, and did not get funded to be considered for funding in the state budget. So outside of the grant, but in the state budget. So that would involve a little bit of additional work beyond that which was originally scoped out. Specifically, it would be crosswalk and some warning lights going across Route 13. So you'd have the ability for folks to be able to come from the rail trail across the street and over to this section of the park space. Then we had a thought of looking for funding for finalizing and implementing the master plan. An amount of money not known to me, so that would require a little bit of additional scoping. I don't know, Veronica, if you had any thoughts on that in terms of a number.
I would defer cost for this to the planning board.
Okay.
They're the ones responsible for the master.
Yeah, it's theirs.
So I would defer cost to that, you know, for them to assess where things stand at this point and, you know, have funds available to go forward.
Okay, I can.
I don't have a number in mind, but, you know, Lance and crew.
Obviously, sooner than later, getting this stuff submitted to Senator Tran and Rep. Harrington. So
120K.
Just whisper that to you.
Hey, you want a number?
I can tell you that's not an unusual number for a master plan. It's actually,
I know. That I do know. So
because I'm not certain that the planning board is going to have had an opportunity to meet anytime soon.
and you're right. The date on that was October 14th, so we were pushing it anyway. So yes, so put 120K down there.
Sure. And the last for consideration comes in from Jimmy Smith, and you may remember, and it's not been on the front burner in some time, but we sought and received a grant of $500,000 for the Greenville Road Bridge. This is a bridge that the town owns that is in significant disrepair. We're getting close to set to go out to bid on it, and the numbers we're looking at, we were going to be a couple $100,000 over the $500,000 grant. So we sought and received from town meeting last year an appropriation for that $200,000. The suggestion now is that with an escalation of pricing, that there may be need for another 50. I'm inclined to say, let's see what the bids look like and then move forward and not try to stick this into a state budget that, even if it happens, may not be available anytime soon enough for us to be able to use. But because Jimmy and I spoke about it, I wanted, in fairness, to be able to at least put it on the table in front of you guys.
Okay.
Could you just clarify exactly which bridge on Greenville Road this is? Is this the one that's already in review by DEP? Which bridge is this?
I'd love to tell you, I could tell you, but
It's right up the street for me. It's a mess. It's got 4 big orange barrels on each corner of the bridge. You can't miss it. It's a little tiny thing, but it's on the way up to Mason.
On the way up to Mason or New Ipswich?
Same thing. So going up the big hill.
Okay, so it's the second bridge past the dump. When you pass the
Correct.
recycling center, it's the
Yes.
secin bridge.
Right before the big
Okay,
hill.
so that is the one that's being reviewed right now, pretty much, or has been in the fall.
yeah, I mean, the project is engineered. Mass DOT has done their first tier review. There was a requirement that some environmental work be done, so there was an additional $3,600 expense for some of the environmental work that needed to be done. So they're ready to go out to bid on the thing. And Jimmy and I spent some time today disassembling some of the earlier cost forecasts, and it appears that there was a duplication of contingency funds that they took the cost of the bridge and added a 15% contingency to it, and then took the cost of the bridge, including the contingency, added it to the engineering and the permitting and the traffic management plan, got a total, and then added a contingency on the total number again. So there was a double contingency, so we were able to back that out. And I think it loosened things up sufficiently enough that we should go to bid and see how we come out.
Are there funds available at other places through DOT?
That's where this grant came from.
So this is the bridge grant that went out last spring?
This is the bridge grant that we talked about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you need from us, Jim? Is that just a?
Just if you have a prioritization of the issues we talked about. So sidewalks in some or all of those legs. The shared spaces grant to include crosswalk and flashing light at 13, or master plan. You can submit all three. You'll likely get a call saying, please prioritize, because that's how it has been done each time we've done this. So I don't know what your pleasure is.
Personally, I think I'd look at the safety piece first, just because we're moving forward with the rail trail. That's going to be here sooner than later. I'd like to put that safety in place. I don't know about you, Veronica, what your preferences
When you
are.
say safety, are you talking sidewalks or are you talking shared streets and spaces?
Shared streets and spaces first, and then sidewalks second.
I might go I would go shared streets and spaces first. I would look at the master plan second. The reason I really want the sidewalks. That's like my number one thing. But I know that there are other ways to get sidewalks. If the Safe Routes to School program is ever implemented in town,
right,
there are grants available through that. I mean, again, you never know if you're going to get the grant or not, but it's at least there for the asking.
Yeah.
The other thing on the sidewalks is, Jim, after we talked, I went driving around looking at, when I was in a town that had sidewalks, are they concrete or are they asphalt?
Right.
And, you know, if you look at from Littleton Center going almost all the way down to Acton, it's asphalt. The sidewalks that they have are asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
Groton Center is concrete in most places, but they also have asphalt going out of town. So we might not need all concrete. You know, it might be that in the center of town, you want it to look, you want that look, but it might not be as important going out to Emery Road or going out to West Townsend. So.
And you also benefit from the concrete and the granite curbing in a more densely traveled area where you're going to have vehicles making turns like in the center. So, good.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'd go with shared streets and spaces, but I know that to get other grants, you really need a master plan in place.
Sure.
And so I think that's important. And I think having funds available to the planning board for writing bylaws and things like that, once the master plan is in place, is important. And that's why I put it as 2, but
okay.
I would go either way.
Wayne, you okay with that, Wayne?
I'm fine with that, because if I remember correctly, the last 2 times we've done this, it comes back to us with that letter and we have to do this all over again. So it's no sense of really finalizing it tonight.
And the other thing I asked is, we're in an election cycle. What happens if it's not Dean Tran and Sheila Harrington? Do we have to change these, or do these still stand because they've been put in by our current representatives?
It would depend. If the budget is finalized by the time that transition took place, then yes, they're in, they're locked, and they're ours.
Okay.
If they're not, which is a possibility, then they're fair game. Then you'd have the governor and the new senator or the new rep going in and having a conversation about whether those are still their priorities.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. I'm good with that. So move along to the next 4.9, the
Do we
energy.
have to vote, or are we good?
You can take a vote if you like. I think to Wayne's point, you're going to be asked to pare it down to 1 within the next
In the end, yeah.
next meeting anyway. So I'll just take it like this as direction from you.
Okay.
Until the next meeting.
All right, 4.9 energy report. I thought we covered this the last meeting.
It came in before the last meeting, but it was not on the agenda. That might be why you're thinking we covered it at the last meeting. It came in right before the last meeting.
Okay, I'm confusing these then. So this is just an update from them, Jim, if I'm correct?
You've received a copy of their proposed plan, and it's in your packets at 4.9.
Yep.
And as timing goes, I did receive an email from Brent Carney, the chair, today, asking if you had reviewed it and offered any comments. I told him that you guys are going to be taking it up tonight for discussion in some fashion. So I think it's timely that he was asking. So you have it in your packets. It's in front of you. I didn't know if you've taken the opportunity to look through it and offer any thoughts you might have, or
I did.
Anything you love or don't, or
I think it's very comprehensive. I mean, it's the first one I've seen since I've been on the board. So I think they have a good plan laid out. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So
Well,
I'm fine with accepting it. So.
well, this is more of a, at least the way I read it, this is more of a, how do we get to an energy master plan?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so they are, they're laying out a plan to get to a plan. So it entails a new committee, if I'm reading this correctly, an
Yep.
energy master plan committee.
Yep, for number one, the first indented number one, correct.
Okay, so in number one, what I wanted to know is this committee appointed by the Board of Selectmen? Because it wasn't specified in here. So that was my first question. And it looked as far as there, so it's an energy master plan committee, which will dissolve after a period of 2 years, or after approval of a plan at a town meeting. So I would want to, I'm assuming it's appointed by the Board of Selectmen, but I would want that explicitly stated
I made
as
that,
opposed to appointed by the Energy Committee. It wasn't clear to me. Number two, ex officio. To me, ex officio means by virtue of their position. And so I don't see these as ex officio members. I would call them alternate members. And I feel that there are too many alternate members. So I think we need a work session, a very brief one, but to discuss this and with a little bit of thought. I mean, if you have however many there are here, I didn't count them, but I'm like, okay, this is like each of the subcommittees includes 2 additional and 1 member each from other town committees. I started thinking, oh my God, we're looking at 9 more people to add on to the 7 or so that are in the first bullet. And so I felt there were too many alternates, but if I might not be understanding this correctly. So I would want to have I think we need a work session with the Energy Committee on this. And then I had a question, what about the Water Department? They aren't represented in here at all. And I think it might be good to have them represented in here. The Energy Committee representative to the Energy Master Plan Committee shall serve as chair of the Energy Committee. I'm good with that. Number 3, I'm good with. I think that's a good suggestion because it is the Energy Committee that are our energy people. And then the rest of this seemed about right. It seemed reasonable. Public hearings, what are is this normal public hearing stuff where you 2 weeks in advance advertise it? And, what do we mean when we're talking about public hearings, et cetera, et cetera. And then my last question was, what happens to the Energy Committee? Are they still in place, and are they doing the other things that they have been doing as part of the plan? So those are my questions. And I guess I would like to propose that we have a brief work session with the Energy Committee to discuss this It doesn't
I
need to
would-
be long.
I would defer that to the creation of the master plan committee to see what they need for alternates, because I think they're a little ahead of themselves with the number of alternates they need,
For number
and who else
two.
should be on there. I don't think the Board of Selectmen needs to be involved with that. To your point, I agree that I think the water department should have some sort of representation there too.
I
And that could
wanted
be,
to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and sounds like you're volunteering to be the Board of Selectmen person. So if you want to have a work session with them,
You
go
took
ahead.
housing. I'm up for the next one. You're up
Your
for the
turn.
next one.
I got sworn in yesterday, so we're all set.
I guess my only other thing is I would want to specify that all members must reside in Townsend. Yeah. So I think this needs a little bit of work before we say, boom, we're blessing it.
So Jim, can you go back to them with our comments, questions, and concerns?
Indeed. Perhaps there's another way to get there, which is if Veronica is going to be the board rep for this committee, instead of having a selectman work session, why not, Veronica, you and I just sit with Brent as the chair and just hammer out the language.
I'm good with that. If that's okay. Yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
we can set up a time and do that. I'm good with that.
But-
I think it's a reasonable plan as far as, how to get there.
Yeah.
We're 2 years out, maybe a little less, depending on how long it takes. But
Okay. Well, in that case, I'll make a motion to appoint Veronica Kell as the Board of Selectmen representative for the Energy Master Plan Committee.
do we have to move to create a Townsend Energy Master Plan subcommittee first?
Well, I think to the extent that it's going to be created, you're going to be the person. We're not going to create it until we get these things answered. So I think
then
Wayne's just saying, Veronica, go off on your own and report back on how this thing is going to look when you're done talking to Brent.
Okay, so move to have me work with the Energy Committee to finalize the Energy Master Plan Development Subcommittee composition and working.
And I will amend my motion to reflect Veronica's amendment. So,
And I will second it.
okay, all those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. Okay. 410, organization of the board. I apologize, Veronica. This was an oversight of mine last time. Should have been on the last agenda since Don retired or resigned. So I think this is a pretty easy one. We'll just end up doing what we did the last time. And I move that Veronica Kell be moved from clerk to vice chair and leave the clerk open.
I will second that. I just want to comment, when we did the board assignments when Don was still here, you had mentioned that you wanted to step away as chair. If you still want to do that, I would do chair, but I'm not looking to do that.
I'm fine. I was a little bit reluctant, thinking that Don was going to finish his term, so that was my thought there to move on. But since that's changed, I think for the time being, until we have the discussion on when the next election is going to be, I'll stay on as chair.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Do we need
All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. Okay. Town administrator updates and reports.
Oh, wait, before we get to that, liaisons.
Oh crap! I forgot
Were we
about
going to
the-
do
I see
that at board reorganization? Sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No.
we were going to do liaisons too, I thought. This was
Yeah, so-
under 410, yeah, which
So
is
ba-
organization of the board.
So basically, taking Don's stuff. I think the most equitable thing to do is take Don's responsibilities and just slice them in half and split them.
Okay.
So I don't care if you want the top or bottom, or if
Well, on his and what was in the packet, I'm already doing Townsend Housing Authority. Because if you
Okay.
look up at under mine, And library trustees are under me too, but I thought that Dawn was it. So why don't I take the bottom half? You take
Okay.
the top half and tell me where you want to split it.
Let's see.
Want to split between water and planning?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So I got the top half, correct?
Yep. So your rec commission, town clerk, highway department, tree warden, cemetery and parks, facilities, and water department.
Yep.
And I'm planning board, board of health, solid waste. I've already got the library and housing, trust fund commissioners, trustees of soldiers memorials.
Yep.
Neshoba Tech, North Middlesex, and the assessors.
Okay, good there.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Sorry, Jim, on to 5-1.
No worries. The posting of the bulletin board, it's actually something that, Veronica, that you had put in. So I apologize that ended up listed under my report on the agenda, because I'm not even certain what your interest in discussion was on that.
There were a lot of postings on the bulletin board that were no longer valid. I didn't look at the bulletin board today or yesterday when I was at town hall, but I probably looked at it whatever day I sent that to you. I really didn't mean it to be an agenda thing. I just meant it to be, the postings on the bulletin board should be accurate. The Housing Authority, we had already assigned the, that's probably, might have been Friday. We had already assigned the trustees at our meeting on October 6th.
Yep,
And
we have
those two posted, there were two exact same postings for those trustees positions still posted there.
Okay.
There were a lot of things, like we hired a recycling attendant, and that is still up there as a posting. And I thought we had hired somebody back in late August, early September.
Mhm.
So it was things like that, just to keep that and also clarification, is the bulletin board now our official posting place? And if it is, it should be accurate. Or is it the website, or are we doing both?
The last vote of the board was that both, with the hard bulletin board being the primary, because we ran into the issue where when internet went down, we weren't able to hold meetings because we weren't able to do postings. So it's both are official, but that is the primary. So,
And if that's the primary, then it would just be good if it were up to date. I mean, I had the same problem with a meeting where it was posted 2 different days at 2 different times, and the day closest to when it was held was the wrong time. And that's not good from an open meeting law standpoint.
the bulletin board is, it's under the purview of the town clerk as the one who posts the meetings officially. So I'll sit with Kathy tomorrow and share some of these comments with her, and it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Thank you.
And Housing Trust, the Affordable Housing Trust regarding rental and mortgage assistance. We had the discussion about a month ago initially about the fact that the COVID funds that are available under the CARES Act provide for funding a program to provide residents support for either their mortgage or their rent. It even extends out as far as arrears on utilities. Since then, the Affordable Housing Trust has been appointed, and at the last meeting there was a discussion about the need to fund before October 30th, which is the deadline for the next round of funding for the CARES funds for the state. And Chaz and I had a discussion just before the meeting, actually talked about how many applicants he thought, and Chaz is here and he can chime in as well, obviously, how many applicants he thought it would be reasonable that we could consider would be able to be processed between now and the end of December, presuming that the program is operational for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, the second week of November to the end of December. And he thought 10, which is lovely, because that's the number that I had actually penciled into the application materials when we put the placeholder in 2 weeks ago. So I think an important thing to know is that just because that's the number that is submitted doesn't mean that that's the be all and end all. If we put in for 10 at the $4,000 per application limit, $40,000, and we find that there's a significant need and it gets burned through in 2 weeks, we can go back and seek additional funds. And in between the first application that went in and this one that's going in at the end of the month, we've had probably 10 times we've gone back and had a different idea about something that was a need and could it be approved. And they do on a rolling basis. They'll send back with an email offering their approval on things. So I don't want people to think that if we put in 40, that's the end of it. So just clearly to understand that, again, if the need is far greater than that, we can go back and ask for additional funds. We then get to the discussion of the mechanics. And this is where I would turn to members of the Affordable Housing Trust to determine which group they intend to saddle up with. Chaz had mentioned that there are a couple of groups that are currently operational. You know, the programs are all in place already. So there would just be a management relationship established between the Affordable Housing Trust in Townsend and one of those outside agencies. So Lori would need to be involved in the discussion about how the funding gets communicated between the town as the recipient of the CARES fund, which puts her name on it, and her responsibility during an audit to be able to articulate what it was for and where it went, and ultimately cycling through the Affordable Housing Trust to an outside vendor and then out to an applicant. So perhaps between now and the end of next week, sometime one member of the trust or another that has some time, we could sit down and have a chat about that. Or if they're going to convene a meeting, I'd be happy to come. And
we do have a meeting on Thursday.
Excellent. Lori and I could actually come if you thought it would be helpful to talk about some of the mechanics, just to make certain that once the approval's in hand, you're ready to hit the ground and running, because it's a pretty narrow window.
Okay, is Lori still on?
Lori is listed on down here, yeah.
Or Laura, I'm sorry.
Lori Shiflin's on, yeah. The Housing Authority is meeting on Thursday. The trust fund trustees are invited to come, and there is a business discussion with them on Thursday. That's posted. And my information that I have so far is that four of the trustees are sworn in, and the other one will be done by Thursday. So the agreement should be all set to sign, and we should be in place to be able to receive funds. So if you would like to attend with I assume you were referring to the accountant?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you can just look at the agenda and see where we're talking about the trust fund business.
Sure.
And under additions, deletions, whatever, I'll just add that you and the town accountant will be joining us for
Awesome.
that. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, next.
And we have ADA grant application, and this was I was an outsider watching an email chain between Carolyn and Veronica on this issue last week, and I take away from it that, and Veronica, please correct me, that you as a select board member want to be differently involved or differently informed, perhaps, than has been the current practice regarding grants. So let me step back away from that and just say what the current practice has been. If there's a grant opportunity for, planning, Beth will, bring it up. She'll talk with planning board members, and if it's something that they're interested in, she'll come talk with me, and we'll work out who's going to write which parts of it, and we go forward. If it gets awarded, we have that announcement that there was a grant award. If Jimmy sees an opportunity. The bridge grant is a great example. He and Lee, his former admin, wrote and submitted and got funded for that. The select board were informed once the funding was in hand. So the way it's always been is each department has, because we are that decentralized in terms of grant writing, each department has looked within their own backyard as to what opportunities are available. And then we coordinate on a staff level about who's going to pitch in and write which parts, who can bring what data to the table. And we submit and hope for the best. If we're lucky and we hit, then we make such an announcement at the board's meeting. So that's what we've been doing, but I take it you'd like to do something a little different.
Well, I guess, so let's use the MVP grant as an example. That was available, and that was brought to the planning board as well. So it wasn't just Beth off by herself writing the grant and then saying, oh, look, we got it. That grant, again, had a little bit of, it was a lot of people in town to, working together to put that in place.
Yep.
So what I would want to know is that these are the grant opportunities that are available to us. And we're going for these. I would have liked to have known that this was in place prior to it being submitted, because I would have added one thing under parks, and that would have been Old Meeting House Park. You have Howard Park in here, Craven Field, Riverside Cemetery. These are the parks in town, but Old Meeting House Park is not on this list. So it's things like that that I would have liked to have known that, yes, we were going to go for this grant, and have had the opportunity to read it prior to it being submitted. And so if it's a grant to buy pencils for the office, that's one thing. But if it's a grant to write an ADA plan, which is what this is, I believe that the selectmen in town should be aware that this is available and that it's going to be, submitted. And I think that the selectmen should have the opportunity to read it prior to submission. I realize that this was done in a very short time frame, that the grant opportunity was available August 7th, but didn't get picked up until September 23rd or 25th.
And I don't think the timing had anything to do with it. That is the process that we have. Again, it's a process that I inherited when I got here, but it's not inconsistent with the process I have used in other communities. In my experience, Veronica, it's unusual for members of the board to be at that level of the weeds on kind of operational grant writing.
I don't want to write the grant. I don't want to write the grant. I don't want to be as involved as I was in MVP.
Right, but you do want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would like to know that the grant is available to the town and that we, the town, are considering applying for it. That's what I would like to know. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
No, I don't think that's unreasonable the way you state that, but that sounds a little different than what I heard a bit ago, which is, and read it prior to it being submitted. I would like to read it beforehand. Let me finish. And read it prior to it being submitted, and presumably then make corrections or edits or additions, like the part that's not listed on the ADA grant as it currently lists. So, I mean, it does start to bleed.
That's because that park, when that park didn't exist in 2004, when the first ADA grant was written, the one that is from 15, 20 years ago. We didn't own the land for that park here in town. It did not exist. And that's why it wasn't in there. But if I had read it, I could have said, yes, please add this park. That's really the only change I would make to this.
And I'm only bringing the point of, Veronica, that it becomes a slippery slope, in my experience, to have board members who are, by charter, policy, and not expressly not to be involved in day-to-day, to start opening that door. You're the Board of Selectmen. If you take that vote, and you say, you know, this is how we want it to be, then we'll march to that. But I have an obligation, I believe, to say the things that I'm saying, it's unusual, and it does open the door, and it is a slippery slope to us having a time frame to submit the grant, getting it all written, getting it ready to submit, and then we fly it up the flagpole, and we're now in 3 rewrites and you know, redesign of the grant. And
I don't tend to do that, Jim, but I do tend to read and make my comments. And I would have appreciated that opportunity.
I think the
That's
simplest
all
way
I'm
is just to
saying.
make her aware. That's all.
but that's not what's being asked. So you guys take a vote, give us the direction, and we'll march. So if your position is that you want, when a grant comes across the department's eyes, they fly it up the flagpole to me and then me to the board to say, we're going to put in for this. And then when a draft of it is drafted and ready to be finalized, it be scheduled on a board agenda for your review, discussion, and comment before it gets inked and delivered. So be it. Vote that, and we'll march to it. I just think it gets into the weeds more than is usual and more than is intended by the charter. But again, you're the Board of Selectmen. So
Right, and we are
vote
going
and
to
give us
have a
direction.
policies and procedures review, and I think at that point, that might be something that we want to look at. In the meantime, if there is a grant, and an ADA grant, an ADA plan is a big document for a town. It's not an insignificant document. And I believe that the Board of Selectmen should be aware of what's in it and should be afforded the opportunity to comment on it. And that's what I'm saying. If you're buying pencils for the office and you're getting a $2,000 grant for that, I might want to know that that exists, because that is part and parcel of our finances in the town. I don't tend to picayune, but I do tend to read things and make comments. And I would like, as a selectman, I would like to be afforded that opportunity.
Well, let's take that up at the policies and procedures discussion at some point.
Sounds good to me.
And just to, again, Veronica, just so I don't go to sleep having not said it, you are not able by policy of the Board of Selectmen to obviate the requirements of the charter.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So next, I actually have a couple other miscellaneous updates. I have a finance update. I touched on it a little bit earlier briefly, but just to make certain I cover it, the fiscal 21 budget that was passed at annual town meeting was predicated on an amount of unrestricted general government local aid equal to the fiscal 20 or last year's amount. We didn't use the greater amount that the governor was then proposing. This was conservative, and this is good given the fact that the governor's reissued fiscal 21 budget does in fact roll back the unrestricted government general aid to the fiscal 20 levels. I will update you more as the House and Senate address the budget, all toward a final and approved fiscal 21 state fiscal plan. It will be after that point in time, when we have a finalized budget, that we would assess what we need to do, if anything, regarding reconvening a town meeting for budget purposes. As of right now, we're good. We wouldn't need to reconvene. So it may be that this is what it's going to be at the end. It may be that it's something entirely different. We won't know until the Senate and the House go through their process.
Okay.
All right. Next, Selectmen election. So we received a resignation from Selectman Don Klein on September 29th, 2020. The charter dictates how to proceed to fill the seat. Charter Article 3, subsection F, subsection 2 states, quote, if there's a failure to elect or a vacancy occurs and 6 months or more will elapse before the next annual town election, the remaining selectmen shall forthwith call a special election to fill the vacancy. In the case before us, the vacancy occurred 6 months and 3 weeks prior to the next annual election. By 3 weeks, this triggers the requirement that the remaining selectmen forthwith call a special election to fill the vacancy. Forthwith means without delay, so the board must call, in quotes, the election without delay. The text of the charter does not, however, require that the election be held, in quotes, forthwith under the letter of the law, just that it be called forthwith. This is a substantive distinction that allows the board to call the election date to take place between any time between now and the regular annual town election, with as little as the statutorily required 64 days between the calling and the holding of the election. So to stop there for a second, whenever you set the election, you can set it no sooner than 64 days from the night you set it, because the law requires 64 days for the clerk to do all of the things that are required under the law. Moving on, while that may be true under the letter of the law or the actual words on paper, perhaps we should also take the spirit of the law into consideration. So just because the letter of the law says all you have to do is call it, but not hold it forthwith, what's the spirit of the law? The timeline in the charter provides the following absolutes. If it's greater than 6 months before the annual, the board shall forthwith call the election. So shall is compulsory. If it's less than 6 months, but more than 3 months before, the board may. So may is discretionary. So the things that are absolute are that you shall call the election if it's beyond 6 months, and you may call an election if it's between 6 months and 3 months. Beyond that, there is nothing absolute or dispositive. From this reading, it appears as though the spirit of the law is that if you are inside a 6-month window until the annual election, you needn't call or hold an election prior to the annual, but rather you could choose to hold the election concurrent with the annual and fill the seat then. While having a full complement of board members is obviously preferred and a positive consideration, there are several reasons why it might be disadvantageous to hold a special election to fill the vacancy this year. They are the unanticipated and unbudgeted expense of a special election between $7,000 and $9,000 is a major one. Another takes into consideration the workload created by a special election, in that the election workers will have to have held the current presidential election and 2 local elections, a special and the annual, and do all that comes with those elections, all within a 6-month period. One more likely downside to filling the selectman seat in an off-cycle election is that voting is generally suppressed in an off-cycle election, and far better turnout is found during regularly scheduled annual elections. While the above reflects some of the usual reasons as to why it might be disadvantageous to hold a special in an average year, we are not even in an average year. So the following are also reasons to factor into your thinking when discussing the holding of a special election this year. We're not in a usual presidential election process currently. Between now and at least mid-November, if not longer, the presidential election will have our local election officials entirely consumed. We're also dealing with the impacts of the 100-year COVID-19 pandemic. We're limiting the requirement for residents to have to come out and participate in an additional election, particularly during the height of flu season, is also strongly advised. Lastly, we have committed to allow the Recreation Department to use the Great Hall to provide the badly needed service of remote learning hub for parents in our community that cannot afford to stay home with their school-aged children when they are not scheduled to be physically in school. The multiple days prior to a special election for setup and the multiple days lost for takedown and cleanup after a special election would cause undue hardship to the parents and school children alike. So where does that leave you? You asked Town Clerk Kathy Spofford and me to come back to you at this meeting with a recommendation. And for all of the above stated reasons, it is our joint recommendation that the board forthwith call the election to fill the vacancy created by Don Klein's resignation to be held on Monday, April 26, 2021, concurrent with the annual election. In so doing, you will have met the letter of the law under the charter, met your legal obligations. You will have exercised your fiduciary responsibility as custodians of the taxpayers' money by not causing the unbudgeted expenditure of $7,000 to $9,000. You'll have been mindful of our overworked election workers, You will have served the interest of the rec program and the parents and kids alike relying upon it. And most importantly, during COVID-19, the pandemic, you will have taken the most responsible action to best protect the health and well-being of the voting public by not requiring that they come out in the height of flu season to vote in a standalone special election. Under board action, let's discuss, and if it meets the board's pleasure, a vote to accept the joint recommendation as cited above. So you asked Kathy and I to kick it around and come back with a recommendation, and that's what we've got. So I don't know what the pleasure of the board is, but I look forward to hearing it.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, John, go ahead.
I have a passing acquaintance with the charter, and I recognize all of the other things that are going on in the world that are very different, but the charter is clear. You guys have to set the date. It needs to be set forthwith. There should be a January date set. Yes, it's inconvenient, but you know what? We got everybody out voting by mail now. Why not vote by mail then? There's no reason for this to go on to April. This needs to be filled. We need a full board of selectmen, and we need to happen as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks. So
At that point, Mr. Chair, just before we move too far from it,
Mhm.
John's considered opinion and familiarity with the charter is distinctly different than the read of the charter, not just that I have, which is not terribly relevant, but that town council has. Town council, concurrently with my reading, says what was said in the recommendation, which is the only obligation you have under the charter outside of a 6-month from the regular annual is to forthwith to call the election. There is no requirement that you forthwith hold an election.
Okay.
Well,
Ron?
if the town clerk or the board of registrars of voters doesn't set one in accordance with the requirements of the charter, then they're derelict in their duties. There needs to be a January election on this matter.
Okay, John, I'll stop that there. Veronica, I want to get the board's discussion first.
Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Have at it.
I think it is important that we have an election in January. My reason for that is also COVID related. We have a 2-person board. Should either Wayne or I, being elderly here as I am, come down with COVID, then we have a non-functioning board of selectmen. I think it is important that we have a third person on the board ASAP. And so I would move that we hold an election either January 19th, which is a Tuesday, Monday, January 25th, or Tuesday, January 26th.
Okay. I've thought a lot about this too. Obviously, I've heard opinions from both sides. And just speaking from my personal experience on the board, this will be the 3rd time with a basic 2-person board. It is, even in a perfect world, it was rather difficult, especially with my job. I mean, that it does preclude me from travel right now, but that wasn't the case in the past. So having remote meetings, while it's allowed right now, I don't know how long that's going to last as far as the moratorium on the not necessity to have a quorum for a remote learning. So, or remote learning. I got school on my mind. Remote meetings. So I am of a similar opinion. I think we should have it. I understand the risks and the issues, but I don't know if that precludes us. We have other areas that we could use for voting that I would like to explore. It doesn't necessarily be town hall, but I know for a fact that a very large portion of the town is voting by mail right now, even in the election. So I'm not undermining the effects that it will have on the voting workers and the town clerk, but I agree. I think it's important to have full board at all times, and I tend to agree. I'm not sure which date of one of those in January would work, but that's my opinion. to move forward with that as soon as possible.
As far as the voting location goes, we here in Townsend have voted in Hawthorne Brook Middle School in the gym in the past. So that's another option. The cafeteria has been used for voting. So there are other locations beyond the Great Hall that could be explored, I believe. And since school isn't in session and they aren't holding gym classes, it seems that that would be a open venue for voting.
Well, I don't think we have to
No.
set that tonight. That's
No,
up
we
for,
don't. That's something that can be explored. So do you want a motion, Wayne?
yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to move for a specific date or do you want me to be general?
I guess I would defer to Jim on that since that seems
At
to be a
least-
vague point.
At least 65 days from when you're calling it. That's the only requirement that you have.
Then I guess I would move that the election, that we hold a special election to fill the vacant Board of Selectmen seat between January 19th and January 26th, dates inclusive of 2021.
And I'll second that. My question there, Jim, is since that is well beyond the 64 days, we have some time in between now and our next meeting to finalize, I guess you'd call it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Kathy did, the town clerk, Spofford, just sent me a message saying that the school will not allow voting to take place within the school buildings any longer. I'm not certain the history of that, but I did just get that message.
Okay.
You ready for a vote, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking something else. Yeah, all those in favor?
Veronica Cal, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes.
One of the questions that I'll get first thing in the morning will be regarding funding. So this is an unbudgeted expenditure as of right now. We would have an obligation to spend money to hold the election. So I will be asked from where we'll be paying for the bills. The clerk's budget doesn't have it. So, I mean, there's the finance committee has a reserve fund for unforeseen expenses that come up after the budget has been set. So that could be one option. It's unusual to hit the reserve fund as early as this, but we are where we are based on the vote you've taken that we do need to have the funds in place. So if you'd like me to process a reserve fund transfer request on behalf of the board for the election expenditures to the finance committee, let me know that. And I'll be happy to do that and get that process. So Kathy does have the funds within her budget to begin moving forward.
I guess my comment on that is we should take the funds from the place that makes the most sense. This is written in our charter, so I am sure we intended to be able to cover an expense such as this.
No.
Should it come up. And if in fact that's not the case, we should in the future take that into account.
When we're balancing a budget, and this will be, I look forward greatly. I look forward to working on budget with you this coming cycle. When we're trying to make balance at the end, we're dealing with the low thousands of dollars that people still are clinging to in their budget proposals that they end up having to give up. So, you know, to fund $9,000 on the off chance that we may have a special election is just something that's it's not done. It would have to come from some other place. So the suggestion that, you know, there should be some place for this to come from, it's just, it doesn't exist.
Well, then the finance committee reserve is probably the best place then. I mean, it's just like the
Well,
saying that you blew 4 fires, you need to be able to pay.
And this isn't the first time we've had to have an unbudgeted election. So,
Right. All right.
Shall I process a reserve fund request?
If that's where makes the most sense to take it from.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would
say
explore all the
yeah.
options right
Yeah,
now.
I would explore the options, but if that's the place that, I mean, we have time. It's more than, we've set the election. So where the funds come from, we can set up a GoFundMe. I don't know. It's wherever the funds normally come from, whatever our options are, that's what we should look at. So,
Gotcha.
All right, 5.2. Board of Selectmen announcements updates, meeting schedule for November, December. Pull my calendar. So our first meeting
well,
is
wait.
on the,
okay, well, let's set up the dates and then I want to do announcement updates and reports.
okay, just because I have my calendar open already, so sorry.
Sounds good to me.
So the 3rd is the election day. I'm not real wild about having that day. I'm open to any other day that week, to be honest with you.
Could we do Monday? I don't know if that conflicts with a planning board meeting. Planning board is usually the 2nd and 4th, I believe.
Yeah.
So we could do Monday the 2nd.
I'm good with that.
So do we need to vote or can we just say, yeah, we're doing Monday the 2nd?
We just said it. We don't have to vote. So we'll do the 2nd and the normal one on the 17th.
Yes.
Do you want to look at December as well, Veronica? You had made a comment earlier that you wanted to.
Yeah, I think we should. I think it's good to know, with the holidays coming, it's just good to know our plan.
So the normal meetings would be the 1st and 15th, and I don't have an issue there.
I don't either. Okay, so that's what we are then. We'll just move that, the 3rd to the 2nd, and everything else is regular.
Okay.
And we'll set up, if we need a work session,
Yes.
we can set up. I had some work session things listed.
And we can work on those offline. I mean, sending.
Okay, we'll send email and get those set. Okay.
Okay. And go ahead with your side of things.
Okay. I wanted to report on our yesterday meeting on the website. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
We met yesterday. We had a work session, and so our decisions were to pursue $6,000 in COVID relief for a Civic Plus upgrade to our website, which means pretty much the cover page will change, not so much the underlying stuff. And I guess that's pretty much the plan from a high level. The department, Jim will work with the departments to get all the data that needs updated prior to us working with Civic Plus. I guess we have to get the grant money, the COVID relief money, to go forward. Is that true?
And we will.
And Jim will do the procuring that needs to be done to get this in place.
Already began that yesterday after the meeting. I took your direction and got the minutes out. Veronica, thank you for the corrections or additions.
Well, not really corrections, just, yeah.
Additions, yeah.
Additions, yeah.
So I'll get those finalized and back out in draft for your next meeting to vote them. But I also started the procurement process. So I reached out to the 2 vendors that we did speak about at the meeting to get the same time frame responses back instead of something that's a couple weeks apart.
Do we need a 3rd one or just the 2 of them?
I need to do outreach to a 3rd one. At this amount, we're not even required to get quotes. We're just required to show on our procurement form that we made outreach to whom and when.
Okay.
So I'll have that all taken care of.
All right, this next one is a holdover from last time, trick or treat guidelines. Are we going to have a chance to review those prior to them being, I assume they'll be posted on the website? How will people know the guidelines for trick or treat that we agreed to last time?
What you agreed to last time was having, again, just watched the meeting, and no one else has had the opportunity to do that because it just went up, is to cite the recommendations that came in from the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, and that the board doesn't take a position on whether you should or shouldn't, but that if you do, the recommendation is to follow these guidelines.
I guess I guess I'd add a link to the website stating as such to the CDC guidelines.
So then,
I
you know,
thought we agreed to the CDC moderate guidelines. Are those the same ones?
those are the ones that came
Protocol?
in from Metcalf, from Rick Metcalf. Yep.
Okay, all right. So that was that. Liaison stuff. I did go to the Council on Aging meeting today, and I just want to read into the record the acceptance letter from November 25th, 2019 for the gift. Dear Mr. Stone, I am pleased to write this letter on behalf of the grateful Townsend Board of Selectmen to acknowledge the incredibly gracious offer made by Sterilite Corporation related to a gift of an addition onto the Townsend Senior Center. Please accept our apology for the time it has taken to respond, if only government could be as nimble as the private sector. At the Board of Selectmen meeting held on November 12th, 2019, the board voted unanimously to accept Sterilite's offer and has directed Town Council to provide the town with guidance on the matter to best assure a smooth project. It must be crystal clear that the town has no part in designing, programming, or constructing the addition. Council's task is to assure that such a project is compliant with state laws and regulations, and equally importantly, that it is in accordance with your directive that the project be designed and built by Sterilite. I will reach out to Mr. Gary Shepherd with additional information regarding the legal means of providing Sterilite access to the land once I have learned more from council. If I can offer any additional information, please do not hesitate to call upon me. I can best be reached, blah, blah, blah. On behalf of the Townsend Board of Selectmen, James Kreidler, Jr. So that was a topic of discussion at the COA meeting held today. And I think I have two other things. These have to do with our meetings in November and December. Looking at policies, there's an audit committee to be appointed in December. Is that correct?
I've not looked at when the date is for appointment, but there is such a committee that the board appoints.
Okay. And then also in going through the website stuff, the DPW committee, and there are maybe two others that are maybe no longer active. Is there something that we have to do to deactivate those committees if they are no longer active?
Yeah,
What's the process there?
best recollection is the select board has already disappointed the DPW study committee. I did see that we had Mr. Shank online here. I don't know if he still is. He was one of the members, but I believe that there was a request from the committee to disappoint them. So that one, I believe, has been officially put to rest. Beyond that, what was the other one, Veronica?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't have that in front of me. Maybe agricultural?
No, that's a standing committee that, I mean, there are names on it right now that I'm pretty certain.
Some of the people don't live in town anymore?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain they haven't met in a good long time, but it'd be a committee that doesn't go away. I believe there's actually a bylaw.
I think it's in the charter, maybe. I don't know if it's a bylaw, but I think it's in the charter.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay, so anyway, that. And I think that's probably it.
Okay. All right, let's move on to 5.3, reviewed and signed payroll. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Veronica Kell, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. Now we have an executive session, so can I get a motion, please?
I'm going to let you make that motion.
All right, I move that we enter an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body regarding the Senior Center Library Complex.
I will second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, and we will not be amended. We will not be reconvening an open session.
Okay, second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay.
I guess, Wayne, what are we negotiating?
Well, let's talk about that in executive.
I would rather have anything that has to do with the senior center library complex discussed in open session.
Okay, then I'll remove my motion then. And we'll just, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'm trying to decide how I want to say this. I would like to see, I mean, I don't, what are we purchasing, exchanging, leasing, or?
I'm going to ask you to ask those questions to Jim out of session, since it's not
Okay, then what I would like to do, we've discussed this now in open session. I would like to forward the emails to you, Wayne, of discussions that I have had with Jim. And so since we've done that.
You can't do that.
I can't do that. Then I would like on the next agenda to have what I asked to be put on this agenda, and that is the licensing agreement for the gift that the Board of Selectmen accepted.
I'll review that with Jim and council to see what the best path is for that.
Sounds good. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn then?
I move that we adjourn at 8:07 p.m.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Veronica Cal, yes.
Wayne Miller, yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night, folks.